On July 13th, 2025, a chilling silence fell over the paranormal world. Dan Rivera, the man behind the infamous Annabelle Doll Tour, passed away suddenly in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, during what was supposed to be just another night on the road for his Devils on the Run haunted tour. He was only 54 years old, but Rivera's legacy, it's eternal. To those who walk the edge of the seen and the unseen, Dan Rivera was more than just a paranormal investigator. He was a guardian of the unexplained, a torchbearer for a legacy rooted in fear, faith, and fascination. Dan wasn't just a face in the crowd. As the lead investigator for the New England Society for Psychic Research, NESPR, he carried forward the legendary work of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the original pioneers of America's most famous haunted cases. He wasn't just working with stories, he was living them. Scene shift, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It was Gettysburg, one of America's most haunted locations where Dan would take his final breath. He had been hosting sold-out paranormal events at the Soldiers National Orphanage, a site soaked in sorrow and supernatural lore. According to Adams County Dispatch records, first responders rushed to Dan's hotel late Sunday night for what appeared to be a cardiac emergency. Though the exact cause of his death remains unclear, the paranormal community was left in shock and in mourning. Who was Dan Rivera really? Born with a soldier's discipline and a seeker's soul, Dan Rivera was a proud U.S. Army veteran who found a different kind of battlefield. Not one of bullets and bombs, but of spirits, stories, and spiritual warfare. He joined NESPR in 2011 and was personally mentored by Lorraine Warren before her passing in 2019. For Dan, it wasn't just about ghosts. It was about truth, respect, and spiritual responsibility. From Netflix's 28 Days Haunted to TV shows like Most Haunted Places, Dan became a familiar face to fans of the supernatural. But beyond the screens and sold-out tours, he was known for his calm energy, warm humor, and powerful storytelling. Annabelle, not just a doll. And then there was Annabelle, the infamous haunted doll said to be demonically possessed. Dan became her trusted handler, not just displaying her, but safeguarding her. To skeptics, Annabelle was just a prop. But to believers, and to Dan, she was an object of deep spiritual caution. The traveling tour, launched in May 2025, became an instant phenomenon. But with the fame came fear. After a fire broke out in Louisiana and a prison escape occurred in New Orleans, internet conspiracy theorists began to point fingers, not at faulty systems or human error, but at Annabelle. Dan, always composed, took to TikTok to refute the rumors, explaining that Annabelle had no connection to these tragedies nor to a recent 911 service outage in Pennsylvania. Still, the whispers never stopped. Despite the swirling stories, Rivera took his job seriously. The case he carried Annabelle in was hand-built, blessed with holy water and sealed with crosses. At every event, he would remind attendees to surround themselves with a halo of white light, a visualization technique he'd learned directly from Lorraine Warren. To him, it wasn't about theatrics. It was about respecting forces beyond our understanding. Tributes and legacy. After Dan's passing, tributes flooded in from across the world. Chris Gillerin, fellow NESPR investigator, said, Dan was passionate, brave, and incredibly generous with his knowledge. He wasn't just sharing ghost stories, he was educating the world about what lies just beyond the veil. Mary Jo Chudley, another renowned researcher, called him a true legend and one of the kindest and funniest guys I ever met in this field. Ryan Daniel Buell, a longtime colleague, said, Dan was the bridge between the past and future of paranormal research. He carried Lorraine Warren's wisdom with him everywhere. But perhaps the most touching words came from Dan himself, from a 2020 tribute he wrote for Lorraine Warren. When you look back at all the pieces you gave away, those pieces will always be remembered. I will never die. My journey has only begun. Now those words ring with a haunting echo, as if Dan knew, even then, that his legacy would outlive him. Final thoughts. Dan Rivera's sudden departure leaves a void, not just in NESPR, but in the hearts of every believer who found comfort, curiosity, or courage through his work. In a world torn between faith and fear, he stood firm, a spiritual soldier who understood the power of story, the presence of mystery, and the duty of those who chase the shadows. As the Annabelle Tour pauses indefinitely and fans around the world light candles in his memory, one thing is clear. Dan Rivera may have left this world, but his journey into the next has only just begun.